2, 1.
Crazy ladies climbing the Statue of Liberty, Facebook categorizing the Declaration of Independence as hate speech, Democrats decrying the 4th of July, and a record low in American pride. Some catastrophizers say we're on the verge of a second civil war. In reality, we're on the precipice of a third American revolution, and the court is the key. Saint Teresa of Calcutta will weigh in. Then, the final part of my interview with North Korean defector and all-around hero Ji Sung-ho. Finally, the mailbag. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. Oh, sorry. Excuse me just one second. I'm having a sip of my delicious Black Rifle coffee. Tastes like freedom. Really compliments leftisteers very well. Black Rifle coffee. These guys are so good. We got to welcome this new sponsor. So you know me, I defend all of those liberal, left-leaning coffee chains that charge you $1 zillion. You go into those places, though, and you really do wish that they took about 80% of all their expenditures, which they spend on like bias training and implicit, unconscious, implicity training, and you know all of the like the fourth gender bathroom. They have the two, and then they added a third. Now they have a fourth gender bathroom. You wish they would stop investing all their money in that and just spend their money on making very good, delicious coffee. Maybe support America a little bit. That's where Black Rifle coffee comes in. These guys, first of all, most important thing, they make delicious coffee. They make excellent coffee. I've been a coffee snob since I was 6 years old and started drinking coffee. Might have stunted my growth. And but I've always liked really good coffee. They make superb coffee. I drink it every single morning. It's really good. More than that, though, the company is great. Founded by former special operations vets, Black Rifle delivers the best roast-to-order coffee right to your door, guarantees you're getting fresh, premium coffee. You can get it whole bean, you can get it ground up, you can get it in Keurig for those Keurig machines. Now, in addition to making great coffee and great coffee gear, they also have this Coffee of the Month club. So, you know, you just sign up. There's no lines. There's no running out. You just get great coffee shipped right to your door every single month, hassle-free. It's the Black Rifle Coffee Club. When you join that coffee club, you'll get discounts. You'll get other offers not available to their other customers. It makes a superb cup of coffee. It feels very American, you know, Black Rifle, just delish, you know. But they also give a portion of their proceeds to veteran and first responder causes. So instead of your money going to like the Planned Parenthood Federation of Namibia or wherever the other places donate to, these guys, you know, you're going to veterans and first responder causes. And you cannot beat this cup of coffee. It is as good or better as any cup of coffee you're going to get. So go to blackriflecoffee.com/covfefe, C-O-V-F-E-F-E. I know, it's confusing, isn't it? Coffee Covfefe, Coffee Covfefe, Coffee Covfefe. blackriflecoffee.com/covfefe, C-O-V-F-E-F-E. The way you can tell the difference, coffee you drink in your mouth, and covfefe, you know, the lines on the table, I'll leave it to your imagination. blackriflecoffee.com/covfefe for 15% off your order. Don't say I never did nothing for you. blackriflecoffee.com/covfefe. What a great sponsor. And I get to drink their delicious coffee. It is so good. Obviously, because Ben hasn't paid me ever, you know, other than when I won that bet at the election last year, 2 years ago. But the coffee is so good. I drink it every day. Really, really good. So, how was your 4th of July? Was it good? I had a very good 4th of July. Obviously, I was playing It's a Grand Old Flag, marching around my apartment with sweet little Elisa. And then, you know, saw some fireworks. I don't know, hung out with some pals. Ate some Omaha steak burgers. That was delicious. Went over, you know, had a couple drinks, saw some fireworks. I suspect you had a similar 4th of July. How did the left spend the 4th of July? We actually have video. For those of you who don't subscribe, this is why you have to subscribe. There was a video of a high school kid running into doorways and banging his head against the wall. Plus, obviously, that wonderful girl dubbed by the internet as Trickly Puff, screaming. That is how the left spent their 4th of July. I mean, it was really, really insane. They lost their minds. Crazy ladies climbing up the Statue of Liberty, even the Democrat Party issuing this crazy announcement. All of this, it does have you realize at least half the country is unhinged. They are really starting to lose it. And you hear all this talk about, is there going to be a civil war? Is there going to be a civil war? I don't think so, but I do think we're on the verge of the third American Revolution. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. Let's start with the crazy lady who climbed the Statue of Liberty. So this is the new campaign slogan for Democrats. She wore a t-shirt and it said, "Abolish ICE." Abolish Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is their new slogan going into 2018. It's not just the crazies who climb the Statue of Liberty, it's even US senators who are stating this. So she goes up, she climbs the Statue of Liberty. They have to evacuate Liberty Island. You know, she's up there for like 2 hours. You know, by the way, that this woman is not a New Yorker because New Yorkers never go to the Statue of Liberty. I lived in New York like all of my life, never once went to the Statue of Liberty. So I don't know, they bust him in just like the progressives always do. They bust in some activist, shut it down for everybody who was trying to have a nice 4th of July. And waits 2 hours all day screaming about how we're separating families at the border, or, you know, that old Obama, that old Clinton policy of, you know, you have to detain the criminals and you can't throw children in jail. So she's screaming a whole hullabaloo about this. Then meanwhile, in San Antonio, a grown man went up to a kid who was just wearing his MAGA hat, his Make America Great Again hat. He so objected to that phrase, Make America Great Again, he goes up, rips the hat off the kid. It actually like pulled off some hair with it too, starts screaming in his face, steals his hat. I think we have a video of that. Here is this crazy guy in San Antonio.
Right now, police are looking for that man who was caught on tape, on camera, throwing a drink at a teenager in that video, the man in the red hat, and walks off with the teenager's hat, pulled it off so aggressively, he also pulled out some hair with it.
I didn't think it was going to generate that amount, like, the amount of, like, what people were doing. Like, I was looking at the comments and some people were like, oh, yeah, like, this is uncalled for, and then people were like, you know, just mixed opinions, but I didn't think it would blow up to what it is right now.
By the way, listen, this kid is great. He's wearing an American flag bandana, you know, he's got braces, he's in high school, I assume. And he says, well, when I posted that video to try to find the guy who threw a drink in my face, ripped off, stole my hat, all this, well, when I posted it, you know, a lot of people were supportive, and then there were some mixed reactions. Mixed reactions are those lefties who are like, yeah, that's good, he should have ripped your head off. You know, it's all that craziness and all that calls for violence coming out of the left. The left has been calling for violence now pretty explicitly for several weeks. And look at the juxtaposition. You got this kid smiling, braces, American flag bandana, you know, just an all-around high school kid. And then this crazy adult leftist, this probably unshowered, you know, hairy leftist, throwing drinks in his face, ripping it off his head, stealing his property. Those are the two sides that you get to look at right now. It's the right with the American flag bandana and the left ripping off property, screaming, vandalizing property, climbing up the Statue of Liberty like a crazy person. Now, you would think in the midst of all this, Democrats would be freaking out. They'd say, oh gosh, we're in an election year. We need to offer an aspirational statement. We need to offer something instead of just this angry craziness and the calls for lawlessness and open borders. That doesn't seem to play well in Peoria. So what do? The exact opposite. That's what they do. Democrats issued this 4th of July statement. This is from the DNC. They said, quote, nearly 2.5 centuries ago, a band of patriots gathered in Philadelphia to declare that all men are created equal. Our nation has changed dramatically since those words were first written on parchment. Generations of brave Americans have fought to expand the promise of equality for more Americans, move our country forward in its march toward a more perfect union. As we celebrate our nation's independence, we recognize America's founding promise remains out of reach for too many families. Too many members of our society are still struggling to find a good-paying job. Not true, by the way. We have record low unemployment. There are more jobs open than people who are willing to fill those jobs. Or the health care that they need. Not true. Barack Obama stole health care from Americans who wanted to keep their doctor. And now we've reversed that, let Americans have their own health care choice. They go on. Sorry to interrupt, Democrats. Too many women, LGBTQ Americans, and by the way, I'm very offended on behalf of the ILAPQLMNOPZYX Americans who were not named by the Democrats, you divisive, exclusive monsters. They go on. People of color, people with disabilities still face inequality and injustice across our society. What's your evidence for that? No evidence, of course, but hey, they're Democrats. Who needs evidence? Everywhere we look, our most fundamental values are under attack. Are that what values? Liberty, great, more liberty than ever. Economic prosperity, good, more prosperity than ever. Calls to, I know that one Democrat value I think is booing God, like they did at their national convention. But now we've got more religious liberty in this land, so you are free to boo God if you want, and like good people and Christians are free to worship God. Thousands of Americans have been separated from their parents at our southern border. Thousands of children have been separated from their parents. Now, this isn't quite true. I mean, this is a policy that's gone on for a long time now. But notice the sleight of hand here. It's not American children that are being taken from their parents. It's illegal aliens invading the country. So the American dream isn't being pulled out of reach for Americans. It's that Americans are allowed to define their borders, to have borders, to say who gets to come into the country, who gets to access welfare systems, who gets to participate in labor markets, who gets to come in when there are perhaps higher risks of crime. Total sleight of hand to conflate. This is what the Democrats do, by the way. It's why they changed illegal alien to illegal immigrant to undocumented immigrant. Even illegal immigrant is ridiculous. There's no illegal immigrant. To be an immigrant, you have to be accepted by the country. Illegal alien is the term. They say, oh, it's really an illegal immigrant. And there are all sorts of immigrants. There are Italian immigrants, there are Irish immigrants, there are illegal immigrants. They're all just immigrants, aren't they? No. They go on, though. At our highest court, workers' rights are being taken away. Not so. Workers are being given rights because now the workers have a right to decide if they want to join that union or not join that union. Workers are being given way more rights. Total lie. Goes on. Voting rights are under assault. Not so at all. They're referring to voter ID because Democrats usually rely on the dead and the felonious to win elections, and now we're suggesting perhaps they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Muslim Americans are being discriminated against for their faith. Don't see a whole lot of evidence for that. And by the way, a huge number of hate crimes in the United States are against Jews. They don't seem to talk about Jews. It's always because the Democrats have taken this very strong stance against Israel and in favor of the alleged religion of peace. A woman's right to choose is under threat like never before. A woman's right to choose to kill her baby is, of course, what they're suggesting, and this gets to the heart of what lies before the Third American Revolution. We'll get to that in a bit. The Democratic Party believes that all people are created equal, no matter who they are, where they come from, who they love, or how they pray. Unless they're Christians, in which case they can't do anything and they have to bake the cakes and they have to arrange the flower arrangements and they need to shut up and stop praying in schools. As we celebrate our nation's independence, Democrats reaffirm our commitment to fighting for the values of inclusion and opportunity for everyone except for patriotic Americans. Maybe that part was implied at the end. So they issue this very angry, negative statement. Everything's terrible. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. And they're focusing on issues that the American people don't want to focus on. So we know that the vast majority of Americans don't want amnesty, don't want open borders, even for dreamers, by the way. And this is true even among Democrats. The majority of Democrats don't want amnesty, even for dreamers. They don't think that should be a priority for Congress. And yet the Democrats are doubling down on this. They're doubling down on their radicalism. In part, it's because Trump has trolled them into doing this. They can't help but take the bait that he puts out there, usually on Twitter. But it's a really weird and losing strategy. On the one day that we're supposed to all be united, the 4th of July, American independence, go out and shoot some fireworks and stop complaining. What do? They complain. Why do they complain on the 4th of July? Because they don't like America. They don't like it. They're showing their hand. They used to say things like, dissent is patriotic. So when they would say anti-American things, they would pretend at least that it were patriotic. They're not even doing that anymore. They're not even pretending. Their anti-Americanism is really right out in front. They say, we don't want any borders. No, America is stolen land. You had the head of the Democrat Party, one of the heads of the Democrat Party, smiling with protesters who say that America is stolen land. That's the radicalism that we're seeing. And that radicalism, I do understand why some people think we're headed toward another civil war. They seem to think, we're so divided now, that both sides are so angry, or at least the left is so angry, that inevitably we're going towards civil war. CNN, Brian Stelter, one of the best characters from CNN, the guy, he looks, I'm not going to make fun of his looks, but one could, one certainly could. He was giving a talk at the Aspen Ideas Festival, and he's there, and he says, we have a national emergency. Right now, the Trump presidency is a national emergency. Never mind, of course, that since President Trump was inaugurated, the Dow is up 5,000 points. Never mind that unemployment is at record lows right now, 3.8% unemployment. For all those Americans who are seeing their wealth increase, their freedoms increase, and their employment prospects increase, it doesn't seem like a national emergency, but there's Brian Stelter to remind them that it is, they at least in his own fantasy world. And then to round all of that off, according to new polling, a record low percentage of Americans are extremely proud to be an American. There is a little caveat here. 47% of Americans are still extremely proud to be American, which is pretty good. You have the word extremely in there. But look, America is a country that really believes in itself. It's a country that was founded as a project. So enthusiasm reigns. You can have cynicism or kind of lethargy or apathy in a place like France. You expect that, right? A friend like, well, qu'est-ce qu'on peut dire? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire? Rien. Right? But not in America. In America, you have this enthusiasm. You say, yeah, damn right, America. F yeah, like the song. I mean, it's really shove a boot in different places and, proud to be an American. It's a very enthusiastic place. And 47% are still extremely proud. I wonder what that breakdown is on party lines, by the way. I wonder, do you think it's just a full 100% of those people who say they're extremely proud are Republicans? I might suspect so, because the Democrats have taken such an explicit anti-American turn. That number, 47%, is way down. That number was 70% in 2003. Now, in part of that, there was this real rallying of the American spirit after the attacks of 9/11. And George W. Bush had great moral leadership right after that terrorist attack. It unified the country. That number dropped. That number stabilized shortly after 9/11, or after 2003 rather, and it stabilized, and it was pretty stable until 2013. And then it really started this decline, and it's been declining ever since. Percentage of Americans who say that they're extremely proud to be an American. What changed? I think in the immediate timeline, we can blame Barack Obama for this. I like to blame Barack Obama for just about anything, but this I think he's really culpable for. It's that second Obama term was just so awful. Usually presidents in their second term moderate a little bit. They try to unify the country. They try to have a nice legacy that can buoy them among all segments of the American people. And Obama didn't do that. Fox.com even admits this. Fox ran, I think he said that the ingenious Obama second term, most presidents moderate. He didn't. He doubled down on the first term. So you had these things like foreign policy. In foreign policy, he didn't try to moderate. He surrendered to Iran. He surrendered to Korea. He flew over planes full of, cases of cash and gave them a ton of American assets. He bowed down. They captured American sailors in the Persian Gulf. He said, oh, well, please don't do that again. Don't do that again. And in Cuba, after a 50-year, 60-year embargo policy and not having normal relations with Cuba, he said, okay, well, we'll open an embassy and we'll give you everything you want, and in return you give us nothing. Just do it because we hate ourselves. And then, of course, in 2015, after the Obergefell decision that redefined marriage to include same-sex monogamous unions, but not same-sex polygamous unions for some reason, because Anthony Kennedy thinks very highly of himself and believes he's a romantic poet. After that decision, what did Barack Obama do? Did he try to unite the country? No. He painted the White House in rainbow lights. It was a huge middle finger to half of the country, to people who didn't want the central institution of society to be radically redefined by a court based on nothing, based on Anthony Kennedy's romantic poetry and the alleged right to intimacy that Kennedy found. And Scalia said, clearly there isn't a right to intimacy, and even if there were, marriage would not expand that. Ask the nearest hippie. He just rubbed most of America's face in this. It was such a radicalism. And the real problem with that, by the way, isn't even the question of what one thinks about gay unions or what to call gay unions or how they should be interpreted by law. The real problem was flouting the rule of law, of saying it doesn't matter what the rule of law is. Yeah, they're gonna look at us with a straight face, the Democrats, and say, yeah, I think all the founding fathers and the framers of the Constitution, they thought the Constitution protected monogamous gay unions and defined marriage that way. That's what they thought. You say, you couldn't possibly think that. No, yeah, that's what they thought. Tell me I'm wrong. And that flouting the rule of law is the real issue. It's think of like the psychology of lines. When you're standing online at a store and you're waiting to check out or something, and when people are online, there have been a lot of studies about this, they don't really mind if the line is long, they don't really mind if the line is not moving, so long as the line is fair. The minute someone cuts in line, people lose their mind because they've broken the rules, and now there is chaos. People are, you think, I can't rely on these rules anymore, so what's going to happen? People get very agitated, people get very anxious, and people get very tense. The situation becomes very tense. That's what's happening by flouting the rule of law. This is why when the Democrats say abolish ICE, what they're saying is abolish law enforcement. They've been talking about this with cops forever, abolish police departments, right? They want to abolish the rule of law, and it makes everybody very anxious because when you don't have a rule of law, you have the rule of men, and men can do whatever they want. And if the guy that doesn't like you is in charge, then things probably aren't going to work out very well for you unless he's bound by the rule of law. This goes back to the Third American Revolution. Not the Civil War. We're very lazy for a Civil War, and there aren't equally strong sides here. But there have been there have been two American revolutions so far. The first was the one in 1776 that began yesterday, over 2 centuries ago. Then the second one was the Civil War. This was another American revolution. This was finishing the work of the American Revolution. That first revolution was based on natural rights. It was based on the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The second American Revolution was based on just that. The Founding Fathers, John Adams, predicted that there would be another American Revolution, that they would have to fight another great war over the question of slavery, because the premise of the United States was not borne out with the institution of slavery in place. The Founding Fathers suspected this. The framers knew that this would happen. Eventually it happened. That same issue is playing out on the question of abortion. And the question of abortion is twofold. There's Roe v. Wade. There's the question of actually the right to an abortion and actually killing babies. And then there's the question of who can define that right. Is the court able to just pretend that there's some right to an abortion in the Constitution? Or if there is to be a right to an abortion, do the legislatures have to enact that as a law because we're a republic and we have representatives to make laws for us? What is the question? And this question of abortion is so essential. The Democrats are all losing their mind on this court seat and over Merrick Garland and over Neil Gorsuch because Roe v. Wade is a ridiculous decision that obviously was wrongly decided. Everybody knows this. The left knows this. They're basically admitting it now. And they know that if an originalist or a constitutionalist or a textualist or whatever you want to call it is nominated to the court, Roe v. Wade might be imperiled. And that's the question. They're saying this is all about this one decision. But the decision isn't just awful for itself. It's awful also for what it says about American law and that anxiety that it brought to American law. Here is Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, explaining the merits of it itself, the question of abortion itself. Then we'll get to it in the American system. Here's Saint Teresa.
But I feel that the greatest destroyer of peace today is abortion. Because Jesus said, if you receive a little child, you receive me. So every abortion is the denial of receiving Jesus, is the neglect of receiving Jesus. It is really a war against the child, a direct killing of the innocent child, murder by the mother herself. And if we accept that the mother can kill even her own child, how can we tell other people not to kill one another? By abortion, the mother does not learn to love, but kills even her own child to solve her problems. And by abortion, the father is told that he does not have to take any responsibility at all for the child. He has brought into the world that so that father is likely to put other women into the same trouble. So abortion just leads to more abortion. Any country that accepts abortion is not teaching its people to love one another, but to use any violence to get what they want. This is why the greatest destroyer of love and peace is abortion.
So true, and she said this, St. Teresa said this in 1994 at the National Prayer Breakfast. This was major international headlines. Mother Teresa says the greatest destroyer of peace is abortion. It seems like such a minor thing. It's such a small little being that you're snuffing out. Oh, it's a privacy issue. But it operates on twofold. Abortion begets more abortion. And the perverse jurisprudence that led to the Roe v. Wade decision begets more perverse jurisprudence that threatens the liberty of the United States. What paved the way for the Roe v. Wade decision was Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965, where Justice William O. Douglas found, quote, the foregoing cases suggest that specific guarantees in the Bill of Rights have penumbras formed by emanations from those guarantees that help give them life and substance. Now, to translate that into English, I'll tell you what he actually said. He said, blah, 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 blah. Gobble da gobble da ba ba da ba. That's what he said. It's absurd. Penumbra is like a shade, a sort of shaded area, shadow that goes out, and emanations coming from those guarantees. So he's saying, yes, there's no right to an abortion in the Constitution, but I like certain parts of the Constitution and I like abortion, and they're probably connected somehow, so let's say that there's a right to abortion. And now that case, by the way, Griswold v. Connecticut, was not about abortion. It was about contraception, whether laws can ban the use of contraceptives. And they found this generalized right to privacy, which does not exist anywhere in the Constitution. And the fact that decision, Roe v. Wade, remains on the books. Such a monumental, such a consequential decision, such an absurd, illogical, nonsense decision. It has led to further crazy jurisprudence, and we have to respect it by stare decisis, some say. But some decisions are so egregious that they have to be overturned. The abortion begets more abortion, and perversity and perverse jurisprudence begets more perverse jurisprudence. By 2015, support for the Supreme Court hit an all-time low in the United States. Trust in the Supreme Court as an institution. Why did it hit an all-time low? Because with those sorts of decisions, it became clear that the Supreme Court was not interpreting the law. The Supreme Court was writing law, and writing consequential law and pretty horrific law. Revolutions happen because of natural rights in the United States. That's what they're about. Thomas Jefferson said frequently, he said, from time to time, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It's a pretty graphic image, pretty vivid image. And that certainly was the case in the First American Revolution. It was certainly the case in the Second American Revolution. We can hope that in this Third American Revolution, that I hope we embark upon, that there will not be more blood spilled, but that the blood that has been spilled since the Roe v. Wade decision will cease to be spilled, that will act as enough spilled blood for that revolution, because we're on the cusp of it. And we can either turn away from it. If President Trump nominates some squish in the model of Justice Kennedy, we'll continue down the path of perverse jurisprudence and the erosion of liberty and the erosion of life. And if he nominates an originalist who is going to read the text and tell us what it means, then we might be able to recapture some of that liberty. We might be able to protect life, without which liberty and the pursuit of happiness means nothing. We can only hope that. The Democrats are losing their mind because of this. They're losing their mind because this tyranny is possibly going to come to an end. This tyranny, there was tyranny before the first revolution, there was tyranny before the second, and there has been a tyranny of men. Since this awful jurisprudence has gone into effect, we've become much more a nation of men. Congress has abdicated its responsibility. The president leads by executive fiat. This was most noted under Barack Obama. The Congress has abdicated its responsibility. The court rules by fiat. The court has abandoned its loyalty to the Constitution, so it would rule as the rule of men. There's a tyranny that's coming to an end. It's brought around a lot of leftist policy prerogatives that might be coming to an end. They're losing their minds. It might look pretty bad now, but it looked pretty bad in the early days of the American Revolution and the Civil War too. It looked pretty bad. And so you say, oh, we're divisive, we hate each other. Well, let's just all calm down. Maybe calm down, or maybe we should try to do something here. And maybe, those people who say calm down, President Trump, just appoint some squishy guy. Then people, no, don't pacify them. Don't pacify them. Do the right thing. Do the right thing, and we might have a chance to keep up American liberty and American life, because it seems that we're at a turning point. I ran a little bit late. Now I've got to bring you, speaking of life and liberty, the final part of my interview with Ji Sung-ho, the defector, and the director of the film that is now, the documentary film that is covering Ji Sung-ho's life and journey. Without further ado, Ji Sung-ho. Hawk, thank you for coming on. Hawk Jensen, you've been a filmmaker for 19 years, journalist, writer, producer. You've You've been around Hollywood. You've been around the
journeyman,
industry,
yeah.
journeyman. What led you to this story, other than that it's the most inspiring story, certainly in my lifetime? What led you to it? How did you get involved? And tell us a little bit about the project.
Sure. Well, I mean, this specific episode, we've been filming this short-form documentary for Witness Project. We've been shooting with Ji Chung-ho. Is the next round of episodes we're doing for the series called Witness Project, which is an original series put out by Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation.
I'm familiar with them.
Okay,
Victims
great.
of Communism Memorial Foundation.
And
You always hear about victims of Nazism or
Yeah,
victims of
sure.
this, but for some reason, victims of communism, even though we can see these unbelievable stories of hell on earth to just getting out and getting to freedom, for some reason that doesn't get a lot of play in the media.
Yeah, well, and I got the call. So, I mean, I started a documentary film company about 6 years ago because I was working mainstream here, and I was just kind of tired of the vacuous aspect of the storytelling and sort of the one-sided aspect of the storytelling. I've always had an independent opinion on matters. And
By the way, for those watching, that means conservative. You know, when you say independent in Hollywood, they're like, you know.
Well, yeah, it's just like the difference of opinion. I mean, there is a main way of thinking in the LA film industry, and if you think differently, conservative or otherwise, you are otherized, and it is something that you have to overcome as a filmmaker and as an artist, as someone who's expressing themselves. And so I got a phone call a number years ago saying like, hey, we've got these stories. They're building effectively a museum, kind of a Holocaust-style museum for the victims of communism. And the Cold War ended, and there was this whole propensity to just leave those stories like, who wants to remember the past? Who wants to think about this? And then and enough time's gone by, 20, 30 years, where I started seeing that those oral stories were starting to die out, weren't being captured, weren't being brought to the sort of historically significant level of being known, to sort of the cultural literacy. And it just really struck me that it was an important underserved part of storytelling. And so I took on the project, Witness Project, and it was really looking at the first-person primary source people who experience these things. I mean, there's more than one type of evil in the world. And these stories are important to capture, and you have to go to the source. And so I actually really looked at it and thought about it as the journey of the dissident. I mean, everything in this town is based off of the hero's journey, right? I mean, every feature film is the ordinary world, the call to adventure, the rejection of the call, the meeting of the mentor, the acceptance of the call. Then you have the ordeal, the belly of the beast, the reward, the road home. That's every feature film,
Right.
Every feature film, right? And we have to know that pat when you make films in this town. And so I took it and looked at it as the journey of the dissident, where you live in a collective, closed society, and your individuality has been crushed. There is a journey of that awakening within. Well before the external 6,000 miles dragging yourself
Right.
through the jungle, there's the sort of, you're mapping the world, you're being fed propaganda, and there's only one God, the dear leader. And then there's a sort of, you start to learn, you start to map the world out for your own mind, and there's cognitive dissonance. There's what you've been told and what you have realized, and that's the first threshold of coming out as a dissident, coming out as an activist. You're like, things are different. And the entire communist system is designed to try and stop you from thinking at that moment. And so I thought, well, how do we show that threshold? How do we show that internal awakening that happens before the first steps taken when you cross the border to, like in Ji Chung-ho's case, cross the border to China and start that step-by-step process. So then the second, much like the meeting of the mentor, the first time you decide to say something out loud, the first time you decide to express yourself, that's life or death. You think, this doesn't seem to compute. They don't seem to be the total leader. You say it to them. You say it to your parents, you say it to your brother, you say it to your sister, whoever, your friend. If you happen to choose incorrectly, that could mean death. That could mean re-education. That could be loss of reputation. It could be loss of ability to support yourself. I mean, it's a very profound journey that happens internally. So I look at the internal and the external as sort of a two-part aspect of my storytelling.
Of course, yeah. I think Sung-ho was talking about that too. The spiritual aspect, this kind of internal aspect, and then obviously the external horrors. When can we see this? Obviously. We've gotten to hear a little bit about this story. When can we see this, and how are we going to make sure that the American people can see this historically important matter that for so long hasn't really been talked about?
Yeah, well, we just wrapped a great series of production days filming this, and we're going to be working on post-production for a number of months, and so probably in the next 6 months we'll come out with this episode, maybe less, and we're working on distribution for it right now in terms of a worldwide distribution. But right now it's currently available. Victims of Communism has a website, /witness, Smock Media. We also have portals to the same aspect, and we're just sort of building our cultural base and understanding of that world, of closed societies, of communist collectivist societies, and the oppression. So it's a great space to kind of start learning how oppression works on the left side of the spectrum.
Well, Hawk, it is so wonderful that you are using the tools of Hollywood to convey important stories that aren't being told to bring about a lot of good by uncovering a lot of evil. I mean, it is so wonderful. I've been out here for a little while, and that isn't what Hollywood does. Hollywood just never does that. So that's really wonderful. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks.
And Song Ho, you are doing God's work, man. It is a singular privilege of my life to get to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you both. Pretty cool to talk to those guys, and great to see some good stuff coming out of Hollywood, too, as they're making this documentary about it. You saw probably on the 4th of July, James Woods, outspoken Hollywood conservative, James Woods' agent dropped him. He said, "It's the 4th of July, and I don't want to represent you anymore." Right, that's Hollywood for you. So it's good to see some good stuff coming out of Hollywood. And, I guess it's too bad for the movie industry because James Woods is such a good actor, but at least now he'll have more time to be on Twitter, and he's a very good tweeter, too, so that'll be enjoyable. Breaking news now, the EPA chief, Scott Pruitt, has resigned. President Trump has accepted his resignation. Democrats have been gunning for this guy forever because he was a strong deregulator. He was really undoing a lot of the insane and tyrannical Obama administration agenda of using the EPA in particular, but the executive agencies to basically regulate all of Americans' lives, to in effect pass laws that run Americans' lives. And he did a great job. I'm sorry to see him go. Andy Wheeler, the deputy EPA chief, will take over in his place. And I hope he's related to Liz Wheeler. I don't know, maybe. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? A good, sturdy Texas Constitution. Anyway, it's too bad to see him go. He did a great job, and they smeared him, and he withstood the smearing for a while. But these guys who are trying to regain some American liberty, they're sacrificing a lot because their lives basically get ruined by the left. So good on you, Scott. Good job for what you did. We've got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Go to dailywire.com right now. It is $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show, you get to ask questions in the mailbag, which is coming up. We got a solid 10 minutes left where we can talk about that, but none of that matters. Oh, that tastes like Justice Amy Coney Barrett, doesn't it? Does that taste like, it tastes like the news headline, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and then the deluge that comes down from all the lefties, those leftist tears. Delish. Very good. We can only hope. Go to dailywire.com. Get your leftist tears. Tumblr will be right back with the mailbag.